Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian Farmer at Tribeca Trade Group. This is your end of day market recap for Wednesday, May 28th. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. So, real quick summary for the day. Kind of a weird day. The breadth was not very good all day long. I think that was a bit telling. And then we had like a last hour kind of washout a bit. Finished down for the day. SPY down 0.6 of a percentage point. IWM, which was lagging all day long, finished, I believe, like right on the lows of the session, down 1% for the day. Bitcoin was down 2.7%. I thought that was kind of interesting too. Um, I do believe I talk about this in the videos that Bitcoin does represent kind of hot money, speculative, a good sometimes leading indicator of speculation. And it leaned down today. So I will go over the charts. But of course, I've got Nvidia here in the background still going up here. So you kind of have a little bit of a delayed reaction. And we're pushing up to 141. I believe the implied move was got you to around like 143, 144, was about 7%. So again, just odd stuff going on into the close. Nvidia was actually rallying into the close, and there was an announcement possibly about China and not selling chips to them. The chips group really sold off names like Cadence, Synopsys, which was interesting because Synopsys reported earnings, but heavy moves to the downside. It was weird because Cadence was weak all day long, and then it really spilled lower, 310 to 288. Some of these moves, I'll tell you, and we'll talk about TEM in a minute too, but man, these moves can really kind of like upset your. Now, I'm not in Synopsys or I'm not in Cadence, not in TEM, but I'll tell you, like you have to be kind of thankful, but it also is let's say like a little bit startling to say names that just when they fall there just doesn't seem to be much liquidity that's going on, or it just doesn't seem like there's buyers that are willing to kind of pick these things up for a little bit. So just kind of interesting to way things go. And another stock too that had earnings yesterday was Okta. And I bought a little bit of Okta on the dip, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to kind of basically wait." But stock fell down 16% today and closed on the absolute lows on a quarter that was not bad. And I thought going into Okta's earnings report that it was overbought. I was asked a couple times about what I thought about Okta going into the earnings report, and I said, no, it's gone up too much. I said I would be a buyer of the dip if it fell on a pretty decent earnings report. I thought the earnings report was just fine. Again, it warranted maybe a pullback of maybe 5% or something like that, but to go down 16% and just fall all day long, pretty remarkable. I'll cover this when I said I would get to it later, but TEM fell how much? 19% on a short report, which this particular short report for this company, I'm not trying to say anything bad about anybody, but they're one of the ones that have gotten a lot of calls wrong, where initially the stock sells off and then it goes higher. Maybe that will happen for TEM too. But I was talking about this in the end of yesterday's video about some stocks priced to perfection, and I made an illustration about Palantir with a price to sales ratio of 90, saying that that's priced to perfection, meaning if there's any like the slightest bad news, maybe a broker downgrading it, maybe some other small bad news, the stock will fall. And that's kind of the thought on something like TEM too. I mean, a short report is not that big of a deal, in my opinion, especially from this particular short sell group, and the stock falls 19% on that. So, so what is all this telling me? And then I will get to maybe the positive news for Nvidia. It just means that we've run a lot, and I think that what happens a lot of times, which I notice, is that when you have a speculative turn in the market like we have over the last month, there's a lot of stocks that are just going to go for really no good reason. And I'm not trying to be negative to TEM. Like I said, I don't have any position in TEM. And you could see it's coming back now after some of the AI names are moving up after Nvidia reported earnings. So maybe this will be a buy the dip opportunity. But I'm telling you, like you you know, in order to be able to get that right for buy the dip opportunity, just like for Okta, you really have to wait and be patient. And I saw some people saying like, "Oh, I'm buying the dip in this thing." When the stock was down like 7 or 8%. What do you do when it's down 19%? Do you just keep buying? Because again, there's severe. So you you can't really be aggressive with saying, "Oh my God, this is a buying opportunity." It's better just to wait. Sometimes, not all the times, but it's better to let the dust settle, because man, 20% moves on a short report, or 19%. Sorry, I guess I'm exaggerating a little bit, is a lot. So that's the negative. I would also, when you look at Nvidia, this is pretty nice. I did play an iron condor type trade. I talked about a couple different ways that you could trade this, and this was in my midday note. I talked about the implied move, which was 7%. And I talked about how you could actually go out further, like, if you wanted to, is sell. I talked about selling the 143 strike calls for $2, right? Collecting premium because the front week is juiced, the weekly options, and then going out and buying the July 144 calls for about 575. So basically, you're getting 375. As long as, the only thing you would have to worry about is if the stock goes above 143, which, it could happen. It's rallying quite decently. But mainly what I was looking at here is, where there is major resistance for the stock, and that's at 143. All right. So another idea, I kind of mentioned a couple different ways to play this, and I actually played it the third way. But another way was to sell premium, is just to sell some put spreads. Because I did think that they were going to, it just felt like they were going to have a good quarter. There was a lot, you heard a lot from Jensen and about how orders, that like they were seeing a lot of orders, a lot of demand. We've heard a lot about AI like accelerating. So, a lot of good things that, if you kind of read the tea leaves, also from the power generation companies, and the rallies that they made, I don't think all of those names, um, power up like, power up, but move up like that without major demand. So that's kind of that was my thought with this. What I did was I sold, I'll bring up my trade for Nvidia. So this was a $2 iron condor. If you're not familiar with that, please Google that or Grok that, whatever AI system that you're using. But I sold this week's 143, 145 call spread, just $2 wide call spread, and collected 53 cents. I also sold the May 130, 128 put spread. So collected premium on both sides, and when you add that up, it's roughly $1 that you're collecting. So the most that you can make is $1. The most that you could lose is $1. So pretty like limited risk, but of course you can control that with how many option contracts that you wanted to put on for something like that. So for example, like 10 option contracts, you would be risking $1,000 to make $1,000, provided that in this case, Nvidia stays below 143 by Friday. Where you lose money is once as Nvidia goes above 144. So we'll see. It might be a little bit of a nail biter here because it's going up to 142 here. So nice move, and this should really help the overall group. I mean, I talked about how I thought it was a really poor story that Palantir was so important for a lot of growth stocks. Again, I reiterate that I don't think it matters anything for growth stocks. I think it's just another one of many stocks out of growth. But this stock is very important because it's a big weight in the indices. It's also a big deal for power companies, for other AI companies, for uh, networking, like you just go down the line and there's, 4 or 5 different groups that Nvidia is going to affect. So this should be very good. I see Qs continuing to move up here. So what I would watch, and I like to, essentially watch resistance levels and support levels. And what I talked about, I think in yesterday's video, is what we would do around this 521.13 level. All in all, today, even though today was not very strong in terms of it was weak market breadth, the price action was kind of not great, but it makes sense to me. And I know that for whatever reason it seems to frustrate people. I think we're in such a world of immediate gratification that people want trades and gains every single day. But we had a huge rally day yesterday. It makes sense to back and fill, and to digest and to consolidate, right? And to shake some of the weekends out of the market. Um, that's how the market usually, that's more of a logical thing than, oh my God, we're going to go up 2%. And then the following day, we're going to go up 2%. But I tell you, I get it. There's a lot of folks that growth investors that want the market to go up every day, but it really, I think, makes it's better for the market to kind of back and fill a little bit, to get a little bit of fear in the market and go from there. Personally, I don't like to see the moves that you're seeing where there's a little bit of bad news on the tape and things come falling down. But I think, having dry powder helps. Taking targets helps, reducing your risk by selling into strength. I think these are all things that can defend you against some of these drops on, hardly any bad news. And then, as I said in the beginning of the video, just waiting for the dust to settle, and again, I try to, provide some of the things that some of the examples that I give you, but, buying Okta a little bit too soon. Sometimes when I read an earnings report and I think it's actually pretty good and the stock falls, I go right after and start buying that. So, but hindsight 2020, sometimes it helps to wait and watch this, the move take place a little bit further. Now, what I did do in Okta is I said I'm scaling in. So I will buy more. I said I will buy more at 108. I will do that, for instance, tomorrow if I see if I see price get back above that support level that was breached today. All right, guys, I'm going to keep the video kind of short, but ultimately nice to see that kind of quarter from Nvidia. And again, you could see, for example, the moves that are taking place here. I'm just going to refresh this, but this was today. Whoops, I need post market. And let me zoom in so you don't have to squint your eyes. All right. You do have a couple names that are falling there. HPQ, Sentinel One down, which is not is an underperformer in the cyber group. But here you go. I mean, look at all the names. Vive had a good earnings report. Look at CRDO. CoreWeave is up 6%. Marvell. So a lot of semi names. SMCI, RBRK is up 3%. TEM is recovering, up 2.9%. VST is up 2.7%. GEV, when you think that stock can't go up anymore, it's up another 2.5% after hours. So again, you better believe it that Nvidia is going to drive the bus in terms of how it's affecting the overall market. Guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.